Whole story from beginning to end. The exciting story is about to begin. A quick reminder to hit that follow and like button. You'll strike it rich just for watching. I've already notified all the guests that the groom is changed. But my fiancée still has no idea. She thinks she can hide the fact that she eloped with that scholarship student to give him a secret home behind my back. Little does she know, I've already stepped aside. I didn't just send the wedding rings and license to him. I even swapped out all the photos for the ceremony, with intimate shots of the two of them together. But on the day of the wedding, when she discovers that the real groom isn't me, she will completely break down and scour the entire city just to find a trace of me. But by then, I'll have vanished from her world forever. Mr. Julian, you mean the wedding schedule stays the same, but the groom is going to be someone else? Is that correct? Facing the wedding planner's confused gaze, I nodded without a moment's hesitation. Yes. The wedding will proceed as scheduled in 2 weeks. As for the materials that need to be changed, I'll get them to you in the next few days. Understood. Should I give Miss Serena a call and let her know? No need. I interrupted almost instinctively, my voice carrying a hint of emotion I couldn't quite hide. Seeing the startled expression on the planner's face, I forced myself to calm down. I tried my best to explain calmly, she's very busy. From now on, anything regarding the wedding only needs to be discussed with me. This wedding was the final gift I intended to give Serena, and since it was a gift, the big reveal should be kept for the very last second. That's the only way she'll truly be surprised. I walked out of the wedding planning company, stood by the side of the road, and pulled out my phone to book a one-way ticket out of Riverport. Just as the booking confirmation popped up, her call came through. I answered, but before I could speak, her tender voice drifted through the receiver. Julian, my parents said they miss you. They want me to bring you over for dinner tonight. They also said they have something special to give you. Can you guess what it is? I didn't make a sound. Serena was an only child, raised from birth to be the successor to the family business. That icy, aloof personality of hers had never changed. And yet, that very same Serena had supposedly given all her warmth to me alone. At least, that's what I had always believed. Our mothers were best friends, so Serena and I grew up together. Unfortunately, happiness is never easily won. Less than a month after my mother passed away, my father couldn't wait to marry that other woman. After that, my stepmother orchestrated my kidnapping. I still remember waking up from a blackout to a man reeking of alcohol putting his hands on me. I panicked. I grabbed a glass bottle from the floor and smashed it against his head. He convulsed a few times and then went still. The other men surrounded me, kicking and punching. I truly thought I was going to die. But then Serena appeared. She burst through the door with the police right behind her. In that moment, I remember her silhouetted against the light, looking like a savior. From then on, she became the only light in my life. I suffered from severe psychological trauma. I was afraid of being touched, afraid of the dark, and afraid of anyone getting close to me. She spent every day taking me to see doctors and going through therapy sessions with me. She did everything she could just to make me smile. Bit by bit, she was the one who pulled me out of the abyss. Back then, I thought I was being cautious enough. But before I fully committed to her, I still tried to confirm one last thing. I asked her, Serena, I can only accept a love that is absolute and unconditional. If you stop loving me, we can part ways on good terms. But if you ever betray me, I will make sure you can never find me again. She happily raised her hand and swore an oath to me right then. Julian, I, Serena, will only ever want you in this lifetime. I promise to love you forever and treat you better than anyone. Time will prove every word I say. But now, time really has proven everything. She couldn't give me that kind of love. She wanted me, but she couldn't let go of someone else either. Just last night, I found a marriage certificate in her coat pocket, belonging to her and Ethan. In that moment, even my breath felt frozen. Ethan, of course I remembered him. The Serena family had sponsored many low-income students over the years, and he was one of them. I didn't remember him because he was outstanding, but because he was far too good at hiding his true intentions. I had seen him pursue Serena and get rejected with my own eyes. Her tone back then had been cold as ice. Sorry, I already have a boyfriend. I had always looked down on Ethan's pathetic attempts to cling to her. I knew exactly how she used to treat him. She was always direct and blunt. She never beat around the bush. She had once coldly rejected him right in front of me, saying, "I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend." Back then, those words made me happy for a long time. After all, the fact that she would voluntarily Tell people I was her boyfriend. Felt like the ultimate validation to me. I had always believed there was zero possibility of anything happening between her and Ethan. Until about a month ago, when she suddenly brought him up. She said Ethan's mother was dying, and that her final wish was to see her son in a suit, walking someone down the aisle into a marriage. She said she wanted to help him out. She actually asked for my opinion. In that moment, I understood that her heart had been swayed by Ethan. I refused. I refused without a second thought. I reminded her, word for word, I only accept absolute, unconditional love. If you're going to share it with someone else, then this is where we end. Her face went pale instantly. She grabbed my hand nervously and said she would never betray me. Never. I believed her. Thinking back now, it's just laughable. Not only did she go behind my back to marry Ethan, she even bought him a multi-million-dollar villa. What's even more pathetic is that they were already living together, acting like a devoted couple, while I was still busy preparing for our wedding. We were supposed to have our ceremony in just 2 weeks. I looked at the photo on their marriage certificate. She looked so calm and happy in the picture. The sight of it made me sick. I'm just glad I found out about all of this before the wedding. At least I can walk away with some dignity. My phone rang suddenly. It was her again. Julian. My parents said they miss you. They want me to bring you over for dinner tonight. Her voice sounded so tender, as if nothing had happened. They said they have something to give you tonight. Can you guess what it is? I didn't answer immediately. Faint noises came from her end of the line. The rustle of clothes and her slightly heavy breathing mixed with the low voice of another man. I didn't need to guess. I knew exactly what she was doing, but I didn't call her out, keeping my voice completely flat. I replied, I'm not home. I'll head to the family house on my own in a bit. No need to pick me up. She still tried to maintain that sweet persona. When did you go out? Why didn't you ask me to come with you? Heh, I go out, and you're in someone else's arms. Talk about a perfect division of labor. I was silent for a few seconds, then forced out a weary, hollow smile. I've been preparing a surprise that I plan to give you on our wedding day. I was just at the wedding planner's office, taking care of a few things. Her tone became excited immediately, as if she were genuinely looking forward to this surprise. What kind of surprise? If I told you now, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore, would it? You'll find out naturally on the day of the wedding. After hanging up the phone, I didn't go straight to the Serena family estate. I went home. To be more precise, I went back to the 3,000 square foot house that used to belong to both of us. This place was somewhere Serena and I had decorated together, piece by piece. From the painting by the fireplace that she personally picked out, to the track lighting I installed by the living room curtains, every single detail was a reminder of our life together. I used to think this would be our forever. But last night, from the moment I saw the marriage certificate she shared with Ethan, I knew that everything between us had come to an end. Serena had already given me the rings we were supposed to exchange at the wedding. She handed them to me well in advance. These matching diamond rings were her own personal designs. I looked at the sketches she had drawn, line by line. That day, she had sat in my lap, explaining her design concepts to me like an excited child. Julian, look, I designed a hidden slot right here. When the two rings are joined together, they form a heart. We'll never be apart, okay? Her eyes had been sparkling with light, as if she truly believed in the idea of forever. I shook those memories out of my head. I refused to linger on them any longer. I took out the rings and called a local courier service. Hello, I'd like to schedule a delivery. I listed Ethan as the recipient, since I wasn't going to be the groom at the wedding. Then these rings, representing never being apart, naturally belonged with the newest member of the family. I scheduled the delivery for 9:30 a.m. on the morning of the wedding. Watching the courier drive away, I finally felt like I could breathe a little easier, but I knew it wasn't enough. This house was filled with her shadow. Before I left, I would erase every trace of her from this place, just as she had erased herself from my heart. By the time I arrived at the Serena family estate, the corners of my eyes were still a bit red. Serena's mother saw that I didn't look well. She glanced toward the door and asked why I looked so pale. Did that girl Serena bully you? I forced a small smile, trying to keep my emotions from crumbling. No, the wind was just really strong outside. Something got in my eye. I rubbed my eyes as I spoke, wiping away the lingering moisture. If she ever treats you badly, you have to tell me, okay? She patted my arm gently. Serena might be busy, but that's no excuse to be inconsiderate toward you. My heart felt heavy and bitter but I could only keep smiling and nodding. I didn't blame her mother. She was always good to me. Ever since my mother passed away, she had cared for me like I was her own family. It's just that there were things she didn't know. Not long after, Serena's car pulled into the underground garage, but she didn't come upstairs right away. Her mother asked me to go down and get her. I walked down to the garage and spotted her immediately. Her white sedan still had its headlights on. She was sitting in the driver's seat. The window was rolled down. She held a slim cigarette between her fingers, though it wasn't lit. Her eyes were fixed on her phone screen. I stopped in my tracks, and before I could speak, I heard her flirtatious voice. "My back is still so sore. It's all your fault." I felt like I had been frozen to the spot. Ethan's voice came through the phone, low and gentle. "Fine, it's my fault. Come over to my place tonight. I'll give you a massage." Serena gave a soft hum, her tone full of sweet, playful whining. "You're not just going to rub my back. You have to take real good care of me." She hung up the phone, a smile still lingering on her lips. She finally lit the cigarette and took a long drag. Then, she leaned back against the seat and exhaled slowly. The expression on her face was one of practiced ease I had never seen before, unrestrained and raw. It turned out, she hadn't been the Serena I thought I knew for a long time. In front of me, she never smoked or drank. She said she hated the smell. In front of me, she was gentle and pure. The kind of person who seemed untouched by the world. But now, she wasn't hiding this side of herself at all. She wasn't even pretending. It turns out that when the person I love stops loving me, they truly don't care to maintain even a shred of pretense for my sake. I stood there, my throat feeling like it was filled with lead. The tenderness I thought belonged only to me could apparently be given to someone else without missing a beat. Her flirtatious voice was still ringing in my ears, but that warmth wasn't meant for me anymore. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, but my stomach felt like it was being twisted in knots. It was churning violently. The car engine cut off. Serena put out her cigarette. A second before she opened the car door, I turned and left the underground garage. I made it back upstairs just moments before she did, and we both walked into the dining room. The servants were busy setting the dishes on the table. Serena's mother looked at her as we walked in and gave her a sharp, annoyed glare. "What took you so long? You were down there forever. Did Julian really have to go down and get you before you'd come up?" Her expression stiffened instantly. Realizing something, she suddenly snapped her eyes toward me. "You went down to find me?" I looked back at her with a calm expression, my tone completely indifferent. "Yeah. I saw you were on the phone, so I didn't want to disturb you. I just came back up. Is something wrong?" Her eyes were fixed on me, afraid to look away for even a second. I had never seen her look that nervous before. "Did you hear who I was talking to?" I felt an unspeakable sense of irony in my heart, but on the surface, I didn't let a single thing show. No, I didn't. Wasn't it a client? Who else would it be? I stared back into her eyes quite naturally, acting so calm that I truly seemed to know nothing. Her expression finally relaxed. She shifted back into that gentle persona I was so familiar with. She took my hand, tracing my palm lightly with her fingertips. Her voice was so soft it could melt. It wasn't a client. It was about the charity gala in a week. I had someone custom make matching jewelry for us. That's who was calling. By my side, no matter what. You will always be the one who shines brightest. Listening to her say that, the other words she had said on the phone flashed through my mind. "My back is still so sore. It's all your fault." She said it so naturally. She was so smooth that for a moment I almost believed her. As for charity galas, in the past, she had established many Julian foundations in my name, for various donations and causes. She didn't even believe in gods or religion, yet she had prayed for me over and over again. I remembered all of it. I had once been so touched, I didn't know what to do with myself. But now, listening to her continue with that same tenderness, I didn't feel a single spark of emotion. I just gave a faint response. "Whatever you think is best." After dinner, Serena's mother brought out a box. It was carved from fine redwood. You could tell a lot of care had gone into it. This was meant to be passed down to the Serena family's daughter-in-law. "But since your uncle and I only have one daughter, we're giving this to the two of you." I opened the box. Inside was a pair of matching jade pendants. The jade was smooth and warm, the carving intricate. They were clearly worth a fortune. She looked at me with a loving smile. But as for me, looking at these pendants that symbolized heritage and marriage, I couldn't feel even a hint of joy. I forced the corners of my mouth into a slight smile. and placed the pendants back into the box. This gift is far too precious. I understand your kind intentions, but something with such deep meaning should wait until the wedding day for us to wear. My attitude wasn't exactly cold, but it was firm enough. She had no choice but to nod. She said she would personally put them on us on the wedding day. I noticed Serena frequently checking her watch, as if she couldn't wait for the meal to be over. I took the opportunity to say my goodbyes. While she was walking me out, she was lightly rubbing her back the entire way. She looked quite uncomfortable. I glanced at her and asked as if casually, "What's wrong? Is your back bothering you?" Her body visibly stiffened. She slowly pulled her hand back. "Just an occupational hazard." She smiled, acting as if it were no big deal. "Don't worry about it." I didn't call her out on it. I simply gave a small nod, but inside, I felt a wave of bitter self-mockery. When we got home, she naturally urged me to go to bed early. Her tone was so gentle, as if nothing had happened, as if we were still that intimate couple about to walk down the aisle. But I knew better. Her rush to get me to sleep had nothing to do with my rest. She was just afraid that if I stayed awake, I'd mess up her plans for a late-night date. I lay in bed with my eyes closed, but my mind was clearer than ever. She lay beside me, her arm wrapped around my waist. At first, her movements were soft, as if she was afraid of disturbing me, but soon her breathing grew heavy, and the grip on my waist tightened. Knowing she was testing me, I didn't move. I intentionally slowed my breathing, creating the illusion of deep sleep, to play along with her expectations. A few minutes later, Serena indeed got out of bed very quietly. The sound of her changing was faint, but I could hear it with perfect clarity. Once she was dressed, she hurried out the door with a familiar pace. Not until I heard the door click shut did I slowly open my eyes. I got up and walked to the window. I pulled back the curtains and watched her car speed out of the driveway. The night was like ink, and her taillights were like a piercing red, drawing a mocking trail of light before my eyes. I stood there, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. A second later, I raised my fist and slammed it hard into the wall. It hurt, but I knew that physical pain was nothing compared to the suffocating feeling in my heart. When I woke up the next morning, I sat up and smelled something delicious coming from the kitchen. The living room was empty, but a familiar figure was busy in the kitchen. It was Serena. She was back. I instinctively clenched my fists, but I walked out of the bedroom calmly. Hearing me, she turned around and smiled. That smile made everything look peaceful and perfect, full of deep affection. I learned a new recipe. She scooped the soup into a bowl with a bright smile. "Come and try it. Your stomach has always been weak. I heard this is really good for it." I didn't move. I just stood there, watching her. Only after a long silence did I finally sit down. My gaze fell upon her. Even though the scene was more familiar than anything, it felt like I was looking at a total stranger. "Where were you last night?" I spoke, and her movements faltered. The smile on her face froze for a split second. She quickly averted her eyes. I saw her blink in a panic, but she adjusted herself almost instantly. She walked over and sat beside me. She took my hand, her eyes full of such concern that it looked like I was the one who had done something wrong. "There was a sudden emergency at the office last night. I saw you were asleep and didn't want to wake you." "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Her voice was soft and gentle, as if she was afraid I was slipping back into my old trauma. I said nothing. I just kept staring at her. She continued to comfort me with a look of heartbreak, even taking out her phone to call her assistant, to arrange for medicine to be delivered, and to schedule a follow-up with my psychologist. This act was all too familiar. I once thought she was my only light in the darkness. Back then, I relied on medication to sleep every day. She would stay by my side, sometimes sleeping on the floor next to the bed, just so that if I had a nightmare, I could reach out and grab her hand immediately. I had truly believed in her. But as she held my hand with such tenderness now, I suddenly noticed something beneath her collar. A faint, lingering mark. She was dressed more conservatively than usual, with even her neck wrapped up tight. But the sleeve she'd rolled up to cook gave her away. An unmistakable hickey was visible on the inner part of her arm. In an instant, I knew exactly where she had gone last night. She gave her body to someone else, yet she could come back in the morning and tenderly make me soup, comfort me over my insomnia, and manage my entire life. Her lies were even seamless, as if nothing had ever happened. "Have some soup." She placed the bowl of sweet stomach-healing soup in front of me. I looked at her eyes, so full of concern, then looked down at that bowl. My stomach churned violently. The smell alone was enough to suffocate me. I abruptly pushed her hand away. The chair made a harsh, screeching sound against the floor. I rushed into the bathroom. What surged in my throat wasn't just nausea, but anger, humiliation, and resentment. Serena followed me, looking incredibly worried. I had just stepped out of the bathroom, looking shaken. Seeing how pale I was, she reached out, wanting to wipe the water from my lips. But the second her hand touched me, I instinctively shoved her back. "Don't touch me!" Her hand froze in mid-air. Her eyes were filled with shock and confusion she couldn't hide. "Julian," her voice dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" I squeezed my eyes shut. I suppressed my emotions, forcing myself to calm down as I whispered, "No, I just read a novel earlier, and I might have projected you into one of the characters." Only then did she relax and step closer. As she wiped the moisture from my face, she teased with a light laugh. "Since when did you start liking novels? What was it about?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "A couple everyone envied," I said in a steady voice. "The woman couldn't handle the test of time and had a change of heart. She betrayed the man. She didn't want to give up her current relationship, but she couldn't let go of the thrill of something new. In the end, she lost everything." "Serena, do you think you'll ever end up like that?" She was stunned for a moment. Her fingers trembled slightly. Then she pulled me into a hug. Burying her head in my chest, her voice was muffled. "Novels are just fiction. No one can tear us apart. And I'll never have a change of heart or love anyone else. Julian, you have to believe in my love for you." I didn't say a word. Her voice was firm and resolute, but I couldn't tell if she said it to reassure me or to convince herself. Over the next few days, she stayed by my side almost every second. She even insisted on taking me to the hospital for my checkup herself. She became even more gentle and careful, like she was back when we first started dating. All her emotions were perfectly hidden. Time flew by, and soon it was the day of the charity gala. Serena took me to get a custom suit made. I wasn't really interested. As I sat to the side flipping through the catalog, my eyes fell on a jet black suit. It was simple and sharp, with a sort of quiet edge to it. It was exactly the kind of person I wanted to be. She noticed me pause. "You like this one?" she asked softly. "Go try it on. If it fits, I'll have them send it straight to the house." I was about to say it was fine, but the clerk stepped forward, with a troubled expression. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Julian. This piece has already been reserved by someone else. If you don't mind, I can recommend some other styles for you." Serena frowned. Her gaze turned cold, even her tone shifted. "Go ask them if they're willing to give it up. I can give them a newer model for free." The clerk glanced at me, then leaned in close to her. They whispered something in her ear. Though the voice was very low, I still heard it clearly. "Mr. Ethan reserved it." I looked at Serena. The subtle expression on her face was almost comical. She was about to speak again, but I cut her off first. "Forget it. It's just a suit." "You want me to fight him for it?" She was stunned for a moment. "The style is nice, so I just took a second look, that's all," I said indifferently. "Whether it's a person or an object, I don't like taking what belongs to someone else." She looked like she'd been choked by my words. Her brow furrowed involuntarily, and her gaze grew hesitant. I ignored her, turned around, and casually picked another navy blue suit to hand to the clerk. She stayed silent for a few seconds before following me. Inside the fitting room, I took off my jacket. My phone screen lit up. Countdown, 7 days. Serena stared at my phone screen. At the countdown notification that had popped up, her brow furrowed instinctively. She reached out to look closer, but before she could touch the screen, I stepped out of the fitting room. As the curtain opened, her movements faltered, as if she had just been struck by something breathtaking. I stood before her in the navy blue suit. Her eyes lit up instantly. She stared at me without blinking, as if seeing me for the very first time. "Julian, you look so handsome in this color." Her eyes were filled with unmasked surprise and affection. In the past, a look like that from her would have made my heart race, and I would have felt like I was walking on air all day. But now, I only felt as still as water. I looked away and didn't respond to her compliment. I turned around, grabbed my phone, and prepared to leave. She stood on her tiptoes to kiss me. I tilted my head, narrowly avoiding her. Then I just said indifferently, "Let's go. We're running out of time." She was stunned for a moment. Watching me grab my phone, she remembered that notification. Her voice dropped a few octaves. "I just saw that countdown reminder on your phone. Only 7 days left. What is that for? I paused for a second. A small wave of emotion stirred inside me, but I kept my face steady. 7 days from now is the wedding day, and it's also the moment I plan to disappear forever. I didn't want her to know just yet. At this wedding, the final surprise she sees won't be a gift, but the truth. I looked up and met her gaze directly, my tone perfectly calm and flawless. It's for the wedding in 7 days. Did you forget? Her eyes flickered for a moment, as if she felt guilty, or was trying to hide something, but she didn't ask any more questions. We arrived at the gala together. It hadn't officially started yet, but the venue was already noisy and crowded. Many people flocked toward us as soon as they saw us enter. Serena glanced back at me and lowered her voice. Julian, if you don't like the noise, I'll take you somewhere quieter. I didn't respond, just followed her forward. People took turns coming up to toast us, greeting us and making small talk. They all talked about how well matched we were, and how wonderful she was to me. Miss Serena really dotes on Mr. Julian. In all of Riverport, you won't find another couple as perfect as you two. Miss Serena is so devoted. Who wouldn't envy Mr. Julian for marrying a woman like her? I'll definitely bring a big gift to your wedding. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness in advance. I stood in the center of the crowd, listening to these words, and I felt like I was suffocating. But Serena was enjoying it. The smile on her face, soft and natural, as if it came straight from her heart. I knew she enjoyed being flattered, just as she enjoyed the security of being in control. Her smile was beautiful. In the past, I would often stare at it in a daze. But now, I only found it ironic. Those people seemed to have finally found a way to get closer to Serena. Their words became smoother and smoother, their compliments increasingly high profile. It was as if by saying a few nice things in front of her, they could get a piece of the pie. But my ears were just ringing. To me, those blessings and flatteries were more piercing than mockery. Irritation welled up bit by bit. I didn't even know how much longer I could stand it. Serena sensed my mood and proactively dismissed the people crowding around us. She led me to a relatively quiet spot in the corner, but that peace didn't last long. That familiar and repulsive figure appeared right in front of me. Ethan was wearing a jet black suit, his expression smug, walking with a leisurely pace. He acted as if he were the star of the gala. Miss Serena, Mr. Julian, long time no see. When he said this, there was a polite smile on his face, but I knew what was hidden beneath that smile. The Serena family was hosting this charity gala. As a representative of those once sponsored by the family, he naturally had the right to be here. Besides, he had a speech to give later, and he was currently in the spotlight. I couldn't be bothered with him. I didn't even look up, just kept my head down looking at my phone. I treated him like thin air, but he took a step forward, his tone hypocritical and flippant. Are you still mad at me, Mr. Julian? I really did act out of line last time. I apologize to you. I was just desperate back then, which is why I asked Miss Serena to pretend to marry me. But Miss Serena already rejected me, and I have a girlfriend now. Let's just let bygones be bygones. He said all of this so casually, as if the humiliation I suffered before wasn't even worth mentioning. He called it an apology, but every word felt like a provocative knife, stabbing me in the heart with a smile. Serena also noticed the hint of boasting in his voice. Her brow furrowed, and her voice turned a few degrees colder. Know your place. Julian doesn't like you, so have some sense, and stay away from us. Ethan gave a cold snort, acting as if he didn't care at all about her dismissal. It doesn't matter if he doesn't like me. As long as the person I love loves me, that's enough. When he said this, he stared at Serena with malicious intent, even deliberately winking at her. In that moment, I saw Serena's gaze flicker with unease. She raised a glass from the table and downed it in one gulp. I didn't want to watch anymore. They were flirting right in front of me, acting as if I were invisible. I stood up with a cold face and turned toward the restroom. Behind me, I heard the sound of Serena getting up in a panic. She seemed like she wanted to follow me, but she was stopped after just a few steps. A group of people surrounded Ethan, acting as if they'd discovered some new wonder. They kept praising him. Mr. Ethan, that suit is so handsome on you. Those earrings are also very tasteful. Ethan lifted his chin, looking full of pride. Of course. My girlfriend bought them. She only gets the best. These earrings, Tam, how come they look like they're from the same batch as the jade material used for Mr. Julian's rings? Did your girlfriend and Miss Serena buy from the same block of jade? I was walking when my feet suddenly froze. I looked down at the jade ring on my ring finger. That was the one Serena had personally designed for us as a couple. She said there was a heart-shaped secret slot inside, and if you joined the two rings together, they would form a complete heart. She also said it symbolized that we would never be apart. I believed her back then, treating that promise like a sacred belief. But now, it felt like a reminder that I was nothing but a joke. I slowly took off the ring and squeezed it in my palm. The smooth jade dug deep into my hand, stinging until it went numb. I had just turned into the restroom, and within 2 minutes, I heard a familiar ringtone sounding from outside. It only rang once before being picked up. And then, I clearly heard Serena lower her voice and say, "Wait for me in the garden." Immediately after, there was the sound of her heels clicking against the floor, moving from near to far, fading away. I closed my eyes, a cold sneer tugging at the corners of my mouth. She had never changed. Her actions were always faster than her words. I knew the layout of this venue all too well, where the small garden was, and the most discreet way to get there. I knew it better than anyone. I didn't take the main entrance. Instead, I pushed open the door to the storage room at the end of the hall. There was a floor-to-ceiling window there. It hadn't been opened in years, but the gap was enough for me to see everything outside. Just as I expected, it wasn't long before she appeared in my sight. Her pace was hurried, her face full of anticipation, and Ethan, waiting there, like an impatient puppet, pulled her into his arms the second he saw her. She didn't resist at all. On the contrary, it looked like she had returned to her most familiar place. He held her waist so tightly, as if he wanted to crush her into his very bones. My hand behind the window trembled slightly. Then I heard him flirtatiously teasing her again. When I went to the hospital for a checkup, the doctor said, "I'm suffering from exhaustion." I almost laughed out loud. Exhaustion? Yeah, right. That night he never came home. I thought he was working overtime with a client, but it turns out he was being drained by someone else. So, that night after we came back from the Serena family estate, she was covered in hickeys. She claimed her back was just a bit sore, and even dressed more conservatively than usual. Well, look at this. The truth just jumped out on its own. To show me exactly what was happening, Ethan pinched her chin to make her look up at him. Without hesitation, she stood on her tiptoes and proactively kissed him. The two were tangled together like skin on skin. The sound of their tongues meeting was exceptionally grating in this quiet night. I don't remember what my face looked like then. Maybe it was numb. Maybe it was cold. Maybe I was so angry my blood was starting to freeze. I saw Ethan bite the corner of her lip. Her brow furrowed, but she didn't push him away. Not until blood started to seep out. Did she pull away and scold him with a frown? "Are you trying to get caught? Didn't I tell you? Don't leave marks where people can see them. Julian will be upset if he sees it." I really should have thanked her right then for actually considering my feelings. Ethan laughed. Completely unfazed, his hands slid from her waist to her back, rubbing her provocatively a few times. Just make up some excuse to fool him. He won't suspect a thing. I love you like this. Come over to my place again tonight. I've got some new tricks prepared for you. He leaned down and whispered something in her ear. Her lips parted slightly, her eyes burning with heat. The next second, she grabbed his collar and kissed him again. I stood right there, peering through that gap, watching with my own eyes as my future bride passionately kissed another man. She had claimed she only loved me. She had held me and said she'd only ever marry me in this life. She had knelt down to design our rings, saying we would never leave each other. Yet the moment she turned around, she gave the other half of that heart to someone else. I leaned against the curtain, my fingers turning white from the pressure. My knuckles were trembling from the tension. Something was churning in my stomach. I could barely stay on my feet. By the time I walked out of the storage room, Serena and Ethan had already parted. She was looking for me as if nothing had happened. When she saw me, she hurried over. Her forehead was damp with a fine sweat. "Where did you go?" "I looked around and couldn't see you. You scared me to death." She was a truly gifted actress. I looked at her, deliberately letting my gaze fall on the corner of her lip. The bite mark was still red, the blood not yet fully wiped away. I went for a walk in the garden, just to get some fresh air. I said flatly, "What happened to your lip?" At my question about her lip, she froze. She froze! Panic followed immediately. A layer of cold sweat broke out on her forehead. I watched her reaction in silence, waiting to see what kind of excuse she'd cook up. Which garden were you in just now? A mocking curve touched the corner of my mouth. I deliberately turned away, pretending not to care as I said, just the one in the back. There were quite a few people there. Why are you so nervous? Am I not allowed to walk around? Her shoulders visibly slumped in relief, like she had just escaped death. It's nothing. I was just afraid you'd get lost. Her eyes were shifty when she said it, hiding things, just as she always did. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned to look at the main stage of the gala. That piece of trash, Ethan, was standing under the spotlight, talking about how the Serena family had sponsored him, and how much he owed them. He mentioned Serena's name over and over again. With every sentence, he would cast a glance in our direction. I could practically guess what his next line would be, and Serena beside me was also looking at the stage over the crowd, a complex look in her eyes that she couldn't hide. I saw her lick her lips, as if savoring something. It caught on her injured lip, causing her to frown slightly. I still remembered how that wound got there. He had bitten it, but she still hadn't figured out how to explain it to me. Only then did she remember she hadn't answered my question. Oh, I've been a bit stressed lately. A blister formed on my lip, and I accidentally popped it. What a pathetic excuse. I gave a cold laugh, not bothering to expose her. I'm tired. I'm going back. I turned around as I spoke, having no desire to see the panic on her face. I heard her hurriedly chase after me and grab me. Her grip on my wrist was much tighter than before. Wait for me. Let me tell my parents. I'll go back with you. Ultimately, she took me back to the family estate. She explained that her mother wanted us to stay for the night, calling it the last family gathering before we were married. I didn't refuse, but the moment I laid down after washing up, I felt like I had fallen into a deep well. Despite being exhausted, I couldn't sleep soundly. I propped myself up against the pillow with my eyes half open, listening to the sound of her tapping on her phone screen beside me, and the sound of her soft giggles, that kind of low, flirtatious laugh. That only happens between lovers. I closed my eyes, trying my best not to think about what messages she was sending, who she was laughing with, or what bets they were making. I don't know how much time passed, but she gently tapped me awake. She gave me a light kiss on the cheek. Her voice was very soft. Julian, Mom needs to talk to me about something. I'll be right back. Just call me when you wake up. I gave a muffled grunt and rolled over, pretending to fall back into a deep sleep. I heard the door click shut. Her footsteps gradually faded away. I waited a moment before sitting up. I heard them walking toward the study. I stood up, walked barefoot to the door, and quietly crept to the study entrance. The door wasn't fully closed. A sliver of light peeked through the gap. Then, I heard Serena's mother's voice, thick with suppressed rage. How many times do I have to tell you? Julian is a good boy. Since you're already with him, you need to cut ties with those trashy men around you. A person like Ethan. How are you still tangled up with him? Don't you know that everyone in our social circle is laughing at you? I froze at the door, almost forgetting to breathe. She was right. They had known about Serena and Ethan all along. Not only did she know, her mother knew too. Not only did her mother know, everyone in our circle knew too. I was the only one kept in the dark, foolishly clinging to a sense of so-called exclusivity and loyalty. When those people told us, I wish you happiness, or you're a match made in heaven, were they laughing at me behind my back? I leaned against the wall, my fingertips ice cold. In the study, Mrs. Serena's scolding continued, but I couldn't hear it clearly anymore. My ears were ringing, like someone was holding my head underwater. I couldn't catch my breath. I turned around mechanically, stumbling back to the bedroom. The moment I lay down, I curled up under the covers, with only one thought swirling in my mind. It turns out that sincerity can be faked. After returning to the bedroom, I felt as if I had lost my soul. I was in a state of utter trance. Not long after lying down, I fell into a heavy, groggy sleep. In my dreams, I vaguely felt Serena return. She sat by the bed, staring at me for a long time. Her gaze lingered on me, just as mine used to when I'd watch her sleep. It was intense, but unfortunately, behind that intensity, what was hidden was no longer pure love. Her phone rang several times. At first, she didn't move, but the ringing grew more urgent, like needles stabbing into my nerves. Eventually, she stood up by the bed, hesitated for a few seconds, and then turned to leave. I didn't open my eyes, nor did I ask where she was going. I just knew better than ever who she was going to see. When I woke up the next day, she hadn't returned. At the dining table, Mrs. Serena personally pushed breakfast in front of me. With a loving and considerate smile on her face, Serena said there was an emergency at the office. So she rushed back early this morning. If you have nothing to do today, stay and play a few rounds of chess with your father-in-law. Don't stay cooped up by yourself all day. Her tone was natural, and her expression was flawless. If it weren't for last night, when I overheard her conversation with Serena, I almost would have believed her concern again. This woman, who once treated me as her own child, now seemed no different from Serena in my eyes. I gave a self-mocking smile, maintaining my usual gentle and composed demeanor in front of her. The wedding planning company still has some details for the ceremony that need confirmation. We prepared for so long, we can't afford any mistakes. I'll play chess with him next time. Mrs. Serena nodded and didn't stop me. I knew exactly what was on her mind. However, I didn't linger after the meal. I went straight to the wedding planning company. I wasn't lying. I really did have things to do today. Last week, I had them change the groom for the wedding. From myself to Ethan, I also promised to provide all the necessary materials for the swap. Over the past few days, Serena had been sticking to me like glue, but she forgot that she had integrated me into every part of her life long ago. Her phone password, her computer password, they were all my birthday. She assumed I wouldn't dare look. She thought I trusted her too much. But in the 15 minutes while she was showering, I turned all her secrets upside down. Her marriage certificate with Ethan, honeymoon photos, intimate photos, even photos of them in matching wedding attire, holding each other. Nothing was missing. That business trip she mentioned was actually a 2-week honeymoon abroad with him, a full 15 days. Now those photos were sitting in my gallery, and I was sending them one by one to the wedding planner to replace my original role. Once everything was settled, I surprisingly didn't feel as miserable as I imagined. After leaving the planning company, I suddenly remembered I had a physical exam recently. The report should be ready, so I stopped by the hospital. Just as I parked the car, I saw her car parked at the hospital entrance as well. My heart skipped a beat. I headed inside. Before I even reached the results counter, I saw her at the end of the hall by the OB/GYN clinic. It was her, Serena and Ethan. The two of them were standing together, talking and laughing. He was supporting the small of her back, his movements as gentle as if he were afraid of hurting her. I stood there, suddenly feeling my throat go incredibly dry. She had that familiar smile on her face, with affection visible in every look. Ethan leaned down toward her, whispering something in her ear. She smiled even more sweetly. So this was her true self. When she saw me, she froze completely. She frantically shoved Ethan's hand away, and cold sweat immediately broke out on her forehead. "Julian, what are you doing here?" I looked at her, my voice terrifyingly low. "I'm here for my physical results." I deliberately avoided looking at her, staring only at Ethan's pretentious face. Serena rushed over, tugging at my arm while explaining in a panicked tone. I was in a minor car accident on my way out today. Ethan happened to be passing by and brought me to the hospital. Anyways, she paused, her eyes flickering. Then she said something that made it nearly impossible to breathe. "The checkup just finished. I'm pregnant." "Julian, are you happy?" I almost laughed out loud. A car accident resulted in a baby? What a miracle. How could I not be happy? I replied softly, my tone so gentle it was almost alien. Ethan glanced at me with a relaxed air, his eyes as tender as if he were looking at a treasure. But I knew that look was meant for Serena. Mr. Julian arrived late, so he might not know yet. Miss Serena is expecting twins. She's already 2 months along. He spoke calmly and deliberately, as if he were intentionally reading out a hopeless sentence. I felt nothing but the sheer absurdity of it. The doctor suddenly rushed up from behind, looking at the tension. Between me and Ethan, the doctor couldn't tell who was who for a moment. He just gave a professional reminder. The pregnancy is still in its early stages. Intercourse is not recommended. Wait until after 3 months to reconsider. Which one of you is her husband? Be sure to pay close attention when you get home. The patient has symptoms of slight bleeding. You must be very careful lately. The word husband rang exceptionally harsh in my ears. Serena's entire face went white in an instant. Sweat rolled down from her temples. Her hands were already shaking. She quickly pulled me along and left. I didn't struggle, nor did I speak. Like a puppet on strings, I let her lead me out of the hospital. I held my medical report. Once we finally reached a quiet spot, She let out a sigh of relief, acting as if nothing was wrong. She said with a smile, "I've probably just been too tired lately. A little accident caused the bleeding. Julian, don't worry. I'll be more careful." I twitched the corner of my mouth. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. She knew exactly why she was bleeding, and so did I. But I didn't care enough to expose her anymore. I had said it long ago. If she betrayed me, I would vanish from her life forever. I was going to keep that promise. And I had prepared a very special wedding gift. She wouldn't forget it. On the way back, her phone screen kept flashing. She glanced at me, only daring to tap it quickly when I turned my head. It was a message from Ethan. "Serena, what should we name our babies? Come over later. Can we choose together?" Her face stiffened. She quickly typed back, "We'll talk about names later." In front of Julian, "Stop saying things that are so suggestive. If he discovers the children aren't his, you don't want to know the consequences." When I caught a glimpse of this message, I felt no anger, only mockery. I knew she loved children. I just didn't expect her to be carrying someone else's. Just then, my phone lit up. It was a friend request from Ethan. I didn't want to deal with him at first, but after a moment's hesitation, I tapped accept. In less than 2 seconds, his message popped up. "Julian, I don't believe you're actually that oblivious. The child Serena is carrying isn't yours." He was blunt, but I already knew. I didn't respond. He probably couldn't wait, so he sent even more. "She and I already have a marriage certificate. Here's the photo." It was the same certificate I had already seen on Serena's phone. Seeing it again now didn't spark any emotion. So what if you're having a wedding? I'm her real husband. As long as I don't agree to a divorce, you'll always be beneath me. She makes time to be with me every day, and she's incredibly passionate in bed. Is it because you aren't man enough for her? She's told a lot of people about me. You think those people are envious of you? They're just laughing at the joke you've become. Remember the suit I wore to the charity gala? She had that custom made for me. You can't even imagine how much she loves me. You wouldn't even be able to fathom it. If you two weren't childhood friends, you wouldn't even be qualified to stand beside her. He even sent some private photos of him and Serena together. Each one felt like a shot fired directly at me. I just found it pathetic. This guy actually thought I was like him, confusing a sense of triumph with actual love. Right then, Serena leaned over and asked with a smile, "What are you looking at? You're so focused." I calmly locked the screen and shook my head. I didn't say anything. She couldn't sense the emotions beneath my cold exterior and continued to link her arm with mine. The tighter she held me, the more I wanted to escape. But I didn't. I didn't pull away. I just pretended to close my eyes for a nap. At least in her eyes, it was better that I hadn't discovered anything yet. That way, the wedding day would be much more interesting. Over the next few days, she was gone day and night. She said the company had important business. I didn't press for details. Meanwhile, Ethan acted like an impatient clown, constantly sending me Serena's whereabouts and photos. He was with her shopping at baby stores, buying things for the 2 children, and picking out names for the ones not yet born. In the photos, she looked soft and sincere. He posed with his head against her belly, making it look quite authentic. "Julian, she's been here with me these past few days. Do you still think she's working overtime at the office? Do you think she'll run away from the wedding tomorrow? She's going to be the mother of my children. When the time comes, she won't be walking toward you. She'll be walking toward me." He kept trying to sting me, but I didn't reply again, because someone really was going to run away on the wedding day. But that person wouldn't be Serena. It would be me. During these few days while Serena wasn't home, it actually became my most relaxed time. Alone, I went through everything in the house that belonged to me, clearing it out piece by piece. I packed it all up and moved it to the small apartment I had prepared in advance, a place nobody knew about, a home that truly belonged to me. This house was over 3,000 square feet. Originally, it was filled with every little detail of our past 5 years. Now, more than half of it was empty. Even the echo had become clear. The night before the wedding, I was packing the very last box. I didn't expect her to come back. She stood at the door, holding a photograph in her hand, her usual smile on her face. She scanned the empty living room and was visibly stunned for a moment. "You've made the house look like you're moving out." She asked why I had made myself look so disheveled. I paused for a second and casually wiped the dust from my face. I spoke in my usual tone, just clearing out some junk. "We'll add new things after the wedding." She obviously misunderstood my meaning, thinking I was preparing for our life after marriage. She didn't realize. I was preparing to leave her forever. She walked toward me and handed over the photo. I had someone restore this. It's the first photo we took together after we started dating. Do you remember? Of course I remembered. That year, the pear blossoms had just bloomed. I had agreed to be with her. Serena dragged me to a photo studio and took this picture. In the photo, I was smiling like a boy who had just been touched by spring, and she was looking up at me, her eyes hiding a bright light. However, the original copy had been destroyed long ago. Ethan's dog had torn it to shreds. He had mentioned it to me with a smirk back then, and Serena hadn't even been angry. She just smiled and petted the dog's head, saying it didn't matter, and that we should get new photos anyway. I had pretended not to hear it, but I remembered every single word. Now she was back with this restored version, treating it like a peace offering to mend our relationship. Unfortunately, photos can be fixed. Feelings cannot. I stared at the photo for a moment, and suddenly spoke up. I'm craving your homemade noodles. She was taken aback. Then her eyes lit up. You want my beef noodle soup? Yeah, I nodded. Let's have dinner together. This was actually my most pathetic memory. When I was first rescued, I was starving. I ate those noodles like a stray dog, hunched over the bowl. She sat across from me and watched me finish 3 bowls. Without saying a word, starting the very next day, she went to a small restaurant to secretly learn for a month, just so I could taste that flavor again. That was the first time I felt the illusion of being loved. Perhaps I'll use this one meal to put a final period on this twisted relationship. She agreed without hesitation, smiling like a child who had finally received an answer. But just as 2 steaming bowls of noodles were placed on the table, her phone rang. I knew exactly who it was. The expression on her face shifted from relaxed to stiff. After the call ended, she looked at me, her eyes full of conflict and apology. Julian, there's an emergency at the office. I looked up at her, without mentioning her lie. I didn't expose her, I just smiled. I looked down and stirred the noodles in my bowl. It's fine. Work is important. Go ahead. We'll have plenty of time in the future. She was stunned for a moment, seemingly confused by my calm tone. She walked over and gave me a light hug. Thank you for understanding me. Julian, I might be busy until very late today. You don't need to wait up for me. I'm really looking forward to the wedding tomorrow. She was holding me when she said that, a hint of happiness in her eyes that she couldn't hide. I buried my head in her shoulder and replied in a muffled voice, I'm looking forward to it too. I looked forward to her reaction when she realized the groom had been replaced. In that moment, she should be very surprised. Not long after she left, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Julian, she's spending the night before your wedding with me. What right do you have to compete with me? Do you really think you can win? He acted like he had already won, constantly sending these piercing sentences. I didn't reply. I just locked the screen. I looked at the bowl of noodles on the table. It looked and smelled perfect, but I had no appetite at all. It turns out that not only do feelings change, but even a person's habits and tastes can shift easily. I picked up the photo she had brought back last night and tore it with force. I ripped it right down the middle, between us, leaving only her half of the smiling face. This was the most realistic outcome. I went to the bathroom and took a hot bath to let myself completely calm down. Shortly after, I fell into a deep sleep, the best night of rest I'd had in years. The next morning, before 7:30 a.m., I woke up right on time. There were 2 notifications on my phone, a train departure reminder, and a status update showing a delivery in transit. That was the diamond ring I had handed to the courier yesterday. This pair of couples' rings will soon be at the wedding venue, delivered right into the hands of the groom, Ethan. My heart is unexpectedly calm. I pack the last of my luggage and leave this place behind, walking away without a single look back. This 3,000 square foot mansion was once a place I called home, but now it's nothing more than the shell of a grand scam. At the same time, Serena wakes up in Ethan's bed. I don't even have to guess. She'll be rushing back in a panic, yet with a blissful smile still tucked in her heart. She'll send me a text, Julian. I honestly can't wait to see you right now. And I'll reply, I feel the same way. I hope when the wedding starts, you'll love the surprise I prepared for you. The wedding venue is packed with guests. Serena stands on the stage, sharing the story of our childhood together with a radiant, happy face, telling everyone about our years of mutual support. She smiles, her eyes brimming with affection. Romantic music begins to play. Balloons soar into the air, and the groom walks toward her under the gaze of 1,000 eyes. Julian, I want to spend the rest of my life proving I will always cherish and love you. Are you willing to stay by my side forever? Everyone waits with bated breath. The groom nods solemnly. Under the dim lights, she finally realizes the person standing before her isn't me. In that instant, her smile freezes on her face. I feel like I can see her from across the crowd, her body standing stiff and frozen, completely consumed by a shadow of panic. But I am already far away on a train to another city, watching it all unfold with cold indifference. This wedding is the final gift I'm giving her. Serena, the surprise you've been waiting for has arrived. Serena's expression shifts from shock to pure fury. She grabs Ethan by the wrist, gritting her teeth as she demands, "Why is it you?" "Where is Julian?" Ethan sobs, trying to pull his hand away, feigning confusion as he speaks. "Serena, what are you saying? We already have our marriage certificate. I was always supposed to be the groom. Everyone is watching. Please stop making a scene." Serena, however, acts as if she didn't hear his calculated reminder. Her gaze is drawn to the wedding ring on Ethan's ring finger. The ring that originally belonged to Julian is currently being worn on Ethan's hand. Serena seizes Ethan's hand and forcibly yanks the wedding ring off his finger. Julian's hands were much more slender. With his ring on Ethan's hand, it had only taken this short time to leave deep red marks around Ethan's finger. Everyone attending the wedding today is a member of Riverport's elite. When the guests in the audience see this, they begin to whisper among themselves. Seeing her husband's signal, Mrs. Serena stands up and walks over to her. "Serena, you need to calm down first. We can talk about this after the ceremony is over." Everyone tells her to calm down, but Serena feels like she's going insane. She's so panicked that her body won't stop trembling. It's only then that she notices the giant screen behind her scrolling through photos, and they aren't wedding photos of her and Julian. Instead, it's the set of wedding photos she took with Ethan, the ones she agreed to take after Ethan pestered her when they got their certificate. As photo after photo flashes by, a memory suddenly strikes Serena. The last text Julian sent her. "I hope that when the wedding starts, you'll love the surprise I prepared for you." Serena's heart jolts violently, and the last string holding her together snaps completely. Julian's words and the current scene overlap perfectly. She finally understands exactly what Julian meant by surprise. Ethan leans in, cautiously taking her hand, his voice dripping with a desperate need to please. "Serena, Julian ran away from the wedding, but you still have me and our children. Let's just finish the ceremony first." Serena's fraying emotions suddenly collapse. She screams to shut Ethan up. In the next second, she swings her hand and lands a heavy slap across Ethan's face. The blow leaves Ethan dazed and dizzy. Within moments, a red, swollen handprint blossoms on his cheek. "What nonsense are you talking? Julian and I love each other so much. How could he possibly just run away for no reason? Did you say something to him? And who the hell do you think you are? This is my wedding with Julian, even if he's not here. You have no right to be standing on this stage." Ethan's ears are ringing. He can't even make out what Serena is saying. Serena's slap just now was incredibly forceful. The world in front of Ethan begins to blur, and he stumbles, falling off the 3-foot-high stage. The impact breaks his lower leg, making him howl in pain. My leg. The wedding venue descends into utter chaos. Serena doesn't have the time to care about any of that. She is currently being tortured to the point of madness by the thoughts racing through her head. Ethan said Julian ran away. She refuses to believe a word of it. Amidst the confusion, she pushes through the crowd and sprints out of the venue. She floors the gas, racing back home. "Julian, you have to be joking with me, right? You must be at home waiting for me. How could the groom be anyone else? A trip that usually takes an hour takes Serena only 30 minutes to complete." But when she throws open the door, she finds nothing but an empty house. There is absolutely nothing left. Serena rushes through the place, searching every room, rifling through every corner. But Julian is nowhere to be found. "Julian? Julian? Please stop joking around, okay? We still have to have our wedding." Serena calls out Julian's name over and over again. The hope in her heart gradually dies with every unanswered cry. It completely vanishes. She had noticed earlier that everything in the house belonging to Julian was gone. Their matching items, the photos hanging on the walls, the gifts they gave each other for every anniversary, and even the mundane, Everyday objects that proved Julian had ever existed in this space. They were all gone. Even though she had sensed something was wrong, when she came home last night, she had chosen to ignore it. On the dining table, the 2 bowls of noodles he made last night are still sitting there, untouched. The photo of her and Julian, the first formal photo they took together, is tossed carelessly on the table. The picture has been ripped right down the middle, leaving only Serena's half behind. Serena feels as if her own heart has been torn apart just like that photo, left raw and bleeding. In this moment, Serena finally realizes that Julian has truly left her. But why? Serena racks her brain, but she can't think of a single reason why Julian would suddenly leave. Her phone begins to ring. Serena is so agitated that her hands are shaking, making it hard for her to even hold the device. When she finally gets a grip on the phone, hoping with all her heart that it's Julian calling, she sees Mrs. Serena's name flashing on the screen instead. Serena's breath hitches. The emotional roller coaster makes her feel lightheaded, and her stomach begins to cramp with sharp pains. She answers the call, and Mrs. Serena's furious voice comes through immediately. "Ethan said you're pregnant. Is it true? And when the hell did you 2 get a marriage certificate? Why didn't you tell us?" "Serena, how could you be so foolish? Messing around is one thing, but you're pregnant with Ethan's child and you still tried to get married? What was she thinking? Did she find Julian?" Serena had already screamed herself hoarse earlier. Her voice was so raspy she could barely speak. After a long pause, she finally muttered in a daze, "Julian, pressed, is gone." Her mother's frustrated voice came through the phone. She was someone who couldn't stand even a grain of sand in her eye. "No wonder when I gave him the jade pendants, he insisted I wait until the wedding day. He must have discovered what was going on between you and Ethan." Her mother said something else after that, but Serena couldn't hear a word of it. Only one sentence echoed endlessly in her mind. "He discovered what was going on between you and Ethan." Serena suddenly remembered. The day Julian agreed to be with her, he had warned her, "Serena, I can only accept a love that is absolute and unconditional. If you stop loving me, we can part ways on good terms. But if you ever betray me, I will make sure you can never find me again." Her mother's guess, and the words Julian once said, repeated constantly in Serena's head, nearly driving her to madness. Julian left her because he discovered the truth about her and Ethan. Now that she was calm enough to think, Serena realized that between her and Ethan, there were cracks in their story everywhere. Julian found out about her betrayal, which was why he had been acting so strange lately. It was just that during this time, she had focused more of her attention on Ethan. Even when she noticed a hint of Julian's unease, she hadn't taken it to heart. Turns out the signs were there all along. She had arrogantly believed she was in control of everything. A sharp pain throbbed in Serena's chest. Guilt was about to crush her. But no matter what, she had to find Julian. Between them, if he didn't say it was over, it didn't count as a real breakup. Serena pulled herself together. She found Julian's number and dialed it. Unfortunately, over and over, it went unanswered every single time. Serena went to her pinned chats on social media and found Julian's profile. As soon as she sent a message, a piercing red exclamation mark appeared. Julian had blocked her on every single platform. Serena stared at her phone, at her wit's end. She was on the verge of a total breakdown. Even if Julian left her, where could he go? His father had remarried the same year his mother died, and already had a new child. Julian had even been victimized by his stepmother. After he was rescued, the relationship between father and son turned ice cold. Julian would never go to his father. Serena went to great lengths to find contact info for Julian's friends, but every person who answered the phone reacted with shock and a question. "Isn't today your wedding day? How could he possibly be here right now?" The hope that had just risen was crushed again. Serena felt like she was being swallowed by despair, until she dialed the number of Julian's best friend, Caleb. Hearing it was Serena's voice. As soon as she stated her reason for calling, Caleb sneered, "Looking for Julian? Serena, stop dreaming. A trashy woman like you doesn't deserve to see him again. You don't even have the right to know where he went." Serena ignored Caleb's mockery. Hope reignited in her heart. She gripped the phone tightly, speaking at a rapid-fire pace. "You know where Julian is, don't you? Tell me. I'll agree to any condition you have. I can give you money." Before she could finish, Caleb spat in disgust. "You think your money is so great? Serena, Your money is useless to me. Even a dog would shake its head at your remorse. Serena didn't even notice that the call had been disconnected. She kept apologizing. I really know I was wrong. Please, tell me where Julian is. When Serena realized the call had ended, she tried to call Caleb back, only to find she had been blocked again. Serena let out a maddened roar and pounded the floor. Her skin split, leaving a large smear of blood on the ground. She acted as if she couldn't feel the pain, torturing herself repeatedly. Who knows how much time passed? The sound of the front door opening rang out again. In just half a day, Serena had already experienced despair countless times, but she still couldn't help but hope that the person opening the door was Julian. Seeing the person entering was her mother, she was consumed by despair once more. Her stiff shoulders suddenly slumped. Her mother, seeing her torturing herself like this in such a short time, felt both heartbroken and annoyed. I warned you over and over again to break things off with Ethan, but you wouldn't listen. And now you're torturing yourself like this. Serena didn't know how to answer. Back then, she thought she could maintain a balance between Julian and Ethan, but she had forgotten that no wall is perfectly windproof. She regretted it. She truly regretted it. She thought everything was seamless, and besides, she hadn't had a change of heart. She was just playing around with Ethan. She thought there wouldn't be any problems that way. Her mother continued her nagging. Ethan's leg is broken, and it's ultimately because of you. We can't just abandon him at a time like this. Besides, he's the father of your child. Since Julian decided to leave without a word, it means there's no turning back from this. You and Ethan are legally married, and you're carrying his child. Stop looking for Julian. No, Serena countered emotionally. She reached out and snatched the phone from her mother's hand. I won't stop looking for him. He only blocked my number. I'm sure he hasn't blocked yours. The phone rang for a long time. Finally, the person on the other end answered. Julian's voice came through. Serena was so agitated, her whole body was shaking. The blood on her hand smeared onto her mother's phone. Her raspy voice trembled. Julian. 2. It's me. The moment her voice was heard, the call was immediately hung up. Serena was overwhelmed by a surge of fury and anguish. After a couple of dry coughs, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her mother was terrified. Julian, how could you be so cruel? Serena's shoulders shook. Tears flowed uncontrollably. It took quite a while for her to struggle to calm down. Sensing Julian's resolute attitude, Serena knew that even if she called back, she would either be hung up on or blocked. There was no point in obsessing over such useless actions. Serena remembered the call she had just made. To Caleb. Caleb definitely knew where Julian went. Ignoring her mother's worried gaze, she called her assistant. Mr. Zhao, send someone to follow Caleb. If you get any news related to Julian, you must bring it to me immediately. Also, investigate all flights and train departures from Riverport today. If there's any information, tell me right away. She issued one order after another. Serena didn't give herself a single moment to breathe. Only by staying busy could she keep from being completely consumed by the pain. Her mother started to speak several times, but stopped. Finally, she tried to offer some advice to help Serena let go. Serena, the world is a big place. If Julian is determined to leave, how are you going to find him? What happened at the wedding today, seen by so many people, and rumors about you have long since spread throughout Riverport. This won't just affect your personal reputation. Even the entire Serena Corporation won't be spared. The best solution right now is for you and Ethan to come forward together and clarify everything. Once the PR team steps in, Serena interrupted whatever her mother was about to say next. Her tone was beyond argument. Mom, don't bother trying to persuade me anymore. No matter what, I must find Julian. If he can just come back, I'm willing to accept any consequence. But giving up on finding him, Dao, that would be the death of me. So, no matter what, even if she had to search to the ends of the earth, she was determined to find Julian. After saying that, Serena didn't even stop to clean the blood from her hands and mouth before leaving for the office. The scandals Serena had previously suppressed regarding her private affairs were now spreading further and further. But in this moment, she had no time to worry about it. There were so many cars and planes leaving Riverport every day that it was impossible to track them all. Mr. Zhao obtained a list from the wedding day of every single flight and train leaving Riverport. After days of investigation, Serena finally discovered that Julian had bought tickets to over a dozen cities across the country and international flights to 6 different countries on that day. Serena looked at the nearly 20 locations listed on her desk, a bitter smile appearing on her face. Julian was truly determined to ensure no one could find a trace of him. But even though she understood this, Serena couldn't bring herself to actually give up on him. Serena began ruling out the wrong answers, one by one. But doing this was like looking for a needle in a haystack. She fell into despair once again. From the wedding day until now, 5 whole days had passed. She had slept for less than 5 hours total. The rest of her time was spent investigating Julian's whereabouts. But she had found nothing. On the 6th day, while Serena was giving instructions to Mr. Zhao, she collapsed from exhaustion on the spot. She remained unconscious for an entire day and night. When she woke up, Serena found herself lying in a hospital bed. She pulled the IV from her hand and prepared to leave, but she was stopped as soon as she got out of bed. "Serena," Mom said, "you haven't rested in days. You should recover before you leave. Otherwise, it breaks my heart. If not for yourself, then for the sake of our child. You can't keep acting so recklessly." It was only then that Serena noticed. Ethan was actually in the room as well. Ethan's leg was in a cast, and his face was full of concern. Serena's expression instantly turned cold. She forcefully shoved Ethan's hand away. "Know your place. Who gave you the right to call her mom?" Ethan's gaze fell upon Serena's belly, which was starting to show, and his tone was full of unmaskable excitement. "We're legally married, and we're having a child. Plus, so many people saw us have our wedding. Mom has already accepted my status." "What?" "She even helped me pick out names for the twins yesterday. Take a listen and see which 2 you like." The last thread of sanity in Serena's mind snapped instantly. She grabbed Ethan by the throat, her fingers tightening with every second. Ethan's face slowly turned from pale to red, then to a bruised purple. He was so terrified by Serena's cold gaze that he forgot to struggle. A terrifying thought rose in his heart. Serena really looked like she wanted to kill him. Mrs. Serena walked in and let out a scream at the sight. Serena finally regained some of her reason, and her grip suddenly loosened. "You!" She looked down at Ethan, whose eyes were filled only with terror. She questioned him word by word. "Why was it you who came out on the wedding day? And how did you get Julian's wedding ring?" These past few days, Serena's mind had been entirely focused on finding Julian. She hadn't had time to think about anything else. Seeing Ethan again, one question after another surfaced. Ethan panted heavily, not daring to hide a thing as he revealed everything that happened on the wedding day. "After Serena left him. Not long after you left, I received a package. The wedding rings were inside. As for the rest, the people from the wedding planning company called to tell me to go to the venue. At the time, I only thought about replacing Julian and holding the wedding with you. I just went. I didn't think too much about it." Once Ethan was free, he scrambled to hide behind Mrs. Serena. Serena immediately contacted the head of the wedding planning company, her eyes fixed deathly on Ethan. "If I find out you're lying to me, I definitely won't let you off." A few minutes later, Serena learned that half a month before the wedding, Julian had already requested the wedding planner to change the groom. The doubt swirling in Serena's heart finally had an answer. But this answer caused a sharp pang in Serena's chest. It turned out that so long ago, Julian had already been preparing to leave her. Serena knelt on the ground, unable to understand how Julian could be so heartless, to just leave like that. All those years of history between them, was it really so? Worthless in Julian's eyes? But if she hadn't failed to resist Ethan's temptation and betrayed Julian, Julian would never have been heartless enough to leave her. Serena slapped herself across the face, twice with great force. But her regret didn't lessen one bit. Suddenly, the sound of her phone ringing interrupted Serena's self-reproach. Mr. Zhao's voice came through the phone. "Miss Serena, I've received news about Mr. Julian. From Caleb." Serena's eyes instantly lit up. "Speak!" The person following Caleb managed to take a photo of his chat screen with Mr. Julian from a distance. By analyzing the background of the photo, it seems Mr. Julian is currently in a remote mountain town in Alaska. In the next second, a photo zoomed in to the point of being blurry was sent to Serena's phone. Even though the photo was so blurry you could barely see a face, Serena recognized him instantly. The person in the photo was Julian. She looked at the photo with near obsession. Book me the earliest flight to Alaska immediately. I'm going to find Julian. 3 hours later, Serena was on a plane bound for Alaska. After a flight of more than 5 hours, the plane landed in Alaska. Serena went straight to the location shown in the background of the photo. After asking around, Serena finally tracked down the guest house where Julian had been staying. But when she took Julian's photo to ask the owner for news, she learned that Julian had just left. Serena was stunned on the spot. A brief ringing sound echoed in her ears. No one knew better than her the reason for Julian's hasty departure. Julian must have known that she had come here, which was why he fled in such a hurry. Serena stood in the room where Julian had stayed before leaving. Inside the room, Julian's scent hadn't fully dissipated yet. Serena found a brooch that Julian had left behind in the bathroom. She pressed it tightly against her heart inside her pocket. There was also a photo of Julian inside. Every day, only when Serena looked at that photo could she get a moment of peace. During the time Julian was gone, she went through all the old photos she had kept on her phone. She printed them out and, following her memory, stuck them one by one onto the wall. She even tracked down all their old couple's items and the matching clothes she used to wear with Julian, buying every single item back. Only by doing that could Serena feel like Julian hadn't really left her for good, but had just gone on a long trip and might come back any day. Serena tried the same old tactics, sending Mr. Zhao to the stations and airports to investigate Julian's whereabouts. But this wasn't Riverport. Mr. Zhao was nearly arrested as a suspicious person, and he ended up learning nothing at all. I returned to Riverport. To be precise, I returned to the city where Serena once wanted to build a future with me. Of course, I knew she had returned as well. 2 days ago, she was still in Alaska, searching for me like a madwoman. But now she had crawled back to Riverport in total disgrace. I heard she started her old habits again, tracking Caleb and scouting for any news of my whereabouts. She even dug up people I hadn't spoken to in years, trying to cozy up to them one by one. I just stood in the distance, watching her like a headless fly, crashing into everyone I had ever known. At first I just watched with cold indifference, but then more and more news started coming in, and some people even came to ask me directly if we were having a lover's spat, saying Serena had gone crazy looking for me. I coldly replied with a simple, no comment. I had already given her every chance I could possibly give, but it was like she couldn't understand plain English. The less I responded, the more she lunged forward like a fanatic. In the end, I was truly disgusted. I had blocked her for so long, yet she really thought it was because I was afraid, or that I couldn't face her. That day, I finally unblocked her. No small talk, no warnings. I simply took everything I had in my possession and dumped it all on her at once. The photo of her and Ethan's marriage certificate, which I had taken from her coat pocket, the intimate photos of her and Ethan on her computer, the records of their honeymoon. I had copied all of it while she was in the shower. And after she got pregnant, those provocative messages Ethan sent me personally, along with all those bedroom photos, I sent every single one of them to her. My phone screen lit up like a barrage of bullets, buzzing incessantly with each sent file. With every message sent, I felt a little lighter, until the final one was gone, and I let out a long breath. It felt like I had taken all the repression of the last 2 years, uprooted it completely, and thrown it into the trash. Then, I turned off my phone, and boarded a flight to Paris. After a dozen hours in the air, an entire night of flying, I slept more soundly than ever before. No nightmares, no memories. When I landed in Paris and turned on my phone, the screen lit up like a sea of notifications. I wasn't surprised at all. Predictably, they were all from Serena, from missed calls to a screen full of Instagram messages. I opened her chat and looked at her first message, letting out a cold sneer. Julian, you're finally willing to contact me. You've forgiven me, haven't you? She hadn't even looked at what I sent before she started her desperate emotional display. A long string of messages begging for forgiveness followed. She said she knew she was wrong, that she was willing to spend the rest of her life making up for it, and that if I just came back, she would give up everything. I didn't reply to a single one. Her messages got longer and longer, looking more like essays. A few sentences turned into a 1,000-word confession. Too bad I'm not a teacher, and I'm certainly not God. I had no intention of giving her anything like forgiveness. I sent those things, not because I wanted her to know how heartbroken I was, but because I wanted her to know that I was no longer the Julian who would tolerate her, or try to placate her. It wasn't about how deeply she hurt me, it was that I had completely moved on. She didn't just betray our love, she betrayed the very last bit of faith I had in her. I just wanted to tell her that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't stupid, and I wasn't blind. I didn't have to wait until the very end to know who you really love. I already knew everything, and I would never forgive her, no matter what. I also hoped Serena would stop bothering me. But Serena clearly misunderstood. Or perhaps she was intentionally pretending not to understand my meaning, continuing to beg for my forgiveness. Looking at those messages, I only found it ironic. Back when I was wholeheartedly with Serena, she didn't care at all, and stayed tangled up with Ethan. Serena likely understood the consequences if the truth ever came out, yet she still indulged in Ethan's affection, unable to help herself. I even gave Serena a chance to come clean about everything. If she had just told me the truth, we could have parted ways amicably, but Serena didn't. She even treated me like a fool and kept me in the dark. Going back a dozen hours ago, when Serena received Julian's messages, she almost thought she was hallucinating. Serena stared at the messages for a full minute, before it hit her that she wasn't dreaming. She didn't even stop to see what exactly Julian had sent her. Full of hope that Julian might forgive her, she assumed that was why he took the initiative to message her. But after sending several messages into a void of silence, Serena's initial joy began to fade. Panic gradually took its place. Serena clutched her phone, waiting for an hour. Then two. From dawn until dusk, there was still no reply from Julian. The phone slipped from her stiff hands and hit the floor, shattering the screen. Serena picked it up, and finally started scrolling through the messages Julian had sent. When she saw those files, her breathing hitched. An unspeakable pain surged in her heart, which then transformed into a violent rage. From the day Julian caught her at the hospital, walking out of the OB/GYN clinic with Ethan had been exposing their secret relationship, right in front of Julian's eyes. Serena looked at all the things she had done for Ethan, which Ethan had used as blades to stab into Julian. The pain was so great she could barely breathe. Serena finally saw clearly. Turns out, she had done so many things to hurt Julian. Serena couldn't imagine how Julian, knowing all of this, had managed to endure spending those last 2 weeks with her. In all honesty, if Julian had done these things with another woman, Serena knew she would have gone insane long ago. She clearly loved Julian so much back then. So how did they end up at this point? A thought struck her, and Serena's gaze suddenly turned fierce. If Ethan hadn't intentionally approached her, she wouldn't have done so many things to hurt Julian. Now Julian was gone. So why did Ethan, the culprit behind it all, have the right to enjoy all of this with a clear conscience? Julian, I'll make it up to you. Whoever made you unhappy, I won't let them get away with it, Serena muttered to herself. She quickly left home and drove to the villa where Ethan was staying. Lately, Serena had been so busy looking for Julian that she had completely put Ethan out of her mind. She had driven this route countless times. In the past, on the countless nights before Julian left her, long after he had fallen asleep, she would go to find Ethan, but not once had it felt as heart-wrenching as it did now. If she had known this would be the consequence, she never would have betrayed Julian. But thinking about it now cannot change the fact that Julian is already gone. All she can do is vent her anger for Julian's sake. Half an hour later, Serena arrived outside the villa, with several bodyguards following behind her. The lights in the villa were still on. Serena rang the doorbell. A housekeeper quickly opened the door. "Miss Serena, Mr. Ethan is in the shower right now." Before the housekeeper could even finish, Serena stormed inside. As she reached the corner of the second-floor stairs, Ethan, hearing the commotion, walked out wrapped in a towel. Seeing that it was Serena who had arrived, Ethan's eyes lit up with joy. He intentionally loosened the towel wrapped around him, letting it slide down to reveal more of his abs and his faint V-line. "Serena, why are you here so late?" Ethan stepped forward and grabbed Serena's hand, tracing circles in her palm with his fingers. Serena looked down at their overlapping hands, remembering the countless times she couldn't resist temptation and slept with Ethan, and she wanted to tear him to pieces right then and there. Just as her mother had said, Ethan's cheap seduction tactics couldn't hide from Serena's eyes at all, but her increasingly stagnant relationship with Julian made her want to seek some excitement. So, under Ethan's seduction, Serena had pretended to be swayed and had an affair with Ethan. The first time, she'd felt guilty, not knowing how to face Julian, But Julian had been too distrustful of her. After that, it happened again and again, until she was completely lost in it. She had even become pregnant with Ethan's child. Serena's gaze suddenly turned sharp and cold. She had no desire to flirt with Ethan. She stared at him with cold eyes. "Ethan, I warned you not to expose our relationship." In front of Julian, Ethan's joyful expression froze on his face. The panic in his eyes was laid bare before Serena, looking exceptionally ridiculous. Even in the sweltering heat, a layer of goosebumps erupted on Ethan's body. How crazy Serena could get for Julian. Ethan had already experienced that fear twice firsthand. That kind of terror was something he never wanted to experience a third time. Besides, as a poor student sponsored by the Serena family, how could he possibly win against Serena? Ethan tried his best to put on an innocent face. He couldn't let Serena know that he was the one who sent those messages to Julian. Luckily, he had deleted the chat logs long ago. Ethan tried to steady his trembling body and spoke calmly. "Serena, what are you talking about? I've never even contacted Julian. Whatever happened between us? He must have heard it from someone else." Serena grabbed Ethan's wrist in a death grip and snatched his phone away. She opened Instagram. Forget those provocative words she had already seen. In Ethan's contact list, Julian wasn't even added as a friend. Ethan took his phone back, feigning composure, but his voice shook uncontrollably as he spoke. "See, I told you. How could I possibly?" Serena cut off Ethan's defense with a cold sneer. She ordered the bodyguards behind her to seize him. "Ethan, you think I'll believe you? Just because you gave some random explanation? If I didn't have proof, how could I have come looking for you at a time like this?" Serena took the chat logs that Julian had forwarded to her and shoved them in Ethan's face. Ethan's face instantly turned, deathly pale as he was hoisted up by the bodyguards. Only the tips of his toes could touch the ground. The stairs were right behind him. If the bodyguards let go on Serena's command, he would tumble down. Ethan begged for mercy in a panic. "Serena, please let me stand up first. I didn't mean to say those things. I was just so lonely. Julian, I didn't want to see you marry someone else, but it's only because I love you too much. Can you forgive me just this once?" Ethan used his free hand to grip the bodyguard's wrist tightly. He was terrified that Serena would recklessly tell the guards to let go. Serena's expression didn't soften at all. As if looking at a dead man, she stared down at the pleading Ethan. "Wasn't it enough to enjoy everything you were given? But you had to be greedy and try to drive Julian away. Since you tried to climb your way up, you're destined to lose everything." Under Ethan's shocked gaze, Serena raised her hand and placed it over Ethan's hand as he gripped the bodyguard. She pried Ethan's fingers off one by one. "Julian is gone, so what right do you have to enjoy any of this?" Ethan was so scared his lips were trembling. The housekeeper who had opened the door saw this, and had long since been scared out of her wits. Ethan noticed her, and quickly shouted, "Call Mrs. Serena." "Serena, don't forget you're still carrying my child. And my status was personally acknowledged by your parents. You can't do this to me." Ethan's threats had no effect whatsoever. His fingers were pried off one by one, and Serena gave him a violent shove. She watched coldly as Ethan tumbled down the stairs. Ethan felt as if the 30 seconds spent tumbling down the stairs lasted for an eternity. By the time he stopped, his leg, which hadn't yet healed, was further injured, and his head was gushing blood. Ethan looked up to the top of the stairs, at Serena, standing there untouched, and realized there wasn't a hint of pity in her eyes. Ethan's remaining sanity was instantly consumed by hatred. "Serena, you're truly a coward. Julian is gone, so you're pushing all the blame onto me. But what did I do wrong? Before I ever sent those messages to him, he already knew about your affair. In the end, it was because you couldn't control yourself, talking about how you love Julian, and that he's more important than your own life. Your so-called love is a joke. No wonder he replaced a groom with me even as he left. He did it to get revenge on you. If you love him so much, then go and repent to his face." Well, Ethan passed out due to excessive blood loss. Serena watched the whole time with a cold eye, without a shred of heartbreak. The only hint of emotion she showed was when she heard Ethan pierce through to her truest inner thoughts, a fleeting moment of embarrassment she had already learned from the messages Julian had sent her, that before Ethan ever started his provocations, Julian already knew about her cheating. But as for the mistake she made, she would apologize to Julian's face personally. Ethan, the culprit, had no right to shift the blame. The housekeeper dialed the phone with trembling hands. Before long, Mrs. Serena and an ambulance arrived at the villa one after another. Mr. Serena came along as well. Seeing the blood covering the floor of the villa, he was so furious that he immediately slapped Serena across the face. "You absolute bastard. Wasn't making a fool of yourself lately enough? Now you're trying to kill Ethan too?" Half of Serena's face swelled up instantly. But she didn't regret what she had just done one bit. What right did he have to steal Julian's place? This was the punishment his greed deserved. She only wanted to have a child with Julian. No one else was worthy of that. So, she was going to have an abortion as a form of penance. When Mr. and Mrs. Serena saw her acting so stubbornly, they were so furious their vision went dark, nearly fainting on the spot. In the end, Serena was forcibly taken to the hospital by her mother. Before leaving, Mrs. Serena warned the housekeeper who had witnessed everything, ordering her not to breathe a word of what she saw. But this villa district was home to all the prominent figures of Riverport. There was no guarantee that someone hadn't noticed what happened. Moreover, regarding tonight's events, the most troublesome issue, Ethan remained unresolved. If even one thing went wrong, it would deal a devastating blow to the already struggling Serena Corporation, which had been walking on thin ice lately. When Ethan woke up, he had a total breakdown, screaming that he wanted to call the police. It took Mrs. Serena a long time to talk him down and calm him. Serena, losing all patience, stayed at the hospital for less than half an hour before walking out. Whether Mrs. Serena stayed behind to threaten or bribe him, she didn't care. If her parents knew what she was planning, they would definitely stop her. So, after leaving the hospital, Serena went to a different clinic and scheduled an abortion. After the procedure was over, Serena, pale and bloodless, forced herself to go home. All she wanted now was to find Julian as soon as possible, to repent to his face, and to tell him how much she missed him. Serena returned to that ice-cold house. Everything had been restored to how it was before Julian left, yet his presence was nowhere to be found. Numbly, she prepared 2 bowls of noodles, and placed them exactly where Julian's bowl had sat before he left. Then, she took out some alcohol and sat on the other side of the table. "Julian, I made the noodles you used to love. I even taught Ethan a lesson for you today. The child I was carrying is gone too. But when will you finally forgive me? When will you come back to me?" Serena acted as if she couldn't feel anything, pouring bottle after bottle of alcohol down her throat, completely ignoring the toll it was taking on her body. She tried to use the alcohol to numb herself, hoping she wouldn't have to endure the pain anymore. Serena pulled out her phone, the screen already shattered beyond repair, and opened her chat history with Julian. One message after another, she read through everything they had ever sent to each other. If only nothing had changed, how wonderful would that be? As Serena read, she remembered the messages Julian had sent her. Among them were many intimate photos of her and Ethan. Back when Julian saw those, how heartbroken must he have been? Serena's breath hitched, and she suddenly clutched her chest, struggling to breathe. Since Julian left, except for that one time she collapsed, she hadn't had a single night of sound sleep. Even though she had rearranged the house to look like it did before he left, it was all a lie in the end. When Serena woke up in a daze, it was already the next evening. The 2 bowls of noodles on the table had long since clumped together. The floor was covered in knocked-over liquor bottles. It was the height of summer, and the bowl of noodles had fermented along with the heavy stench of alcohol, creating a foul odor. But Serena acted as if she had no senses left, merging herself into the wretched environment of the room. She spent day after day like a walking corpse. Serena never received any news about Julian. Mrs. Serena must have promised Ethan something, because he, who had been clamoring for the police, went silent. However, back in Riverport, Serena's reputation and that of her family had plummeted. Mrs. Serena couldn't bear to see it, and, after failing to convince Serena to pull herself together, she simply brought in a psychiatrist to treat her. But Serena refused to cooperate with the treatment at all, and the results were negligible. Serena, who used to be very disciplined with smoking and drinking, had, in the months since Julian left, developed a full-blown addiction to both. She tried to use them to numb herself, trying to forget everything, but only Serena knew that it was all in vain. It was just that, other than this, Serena couldn't think of a better way. "Julian, didn't you hate it most when I smoked and drank? Why don't you show up and stop me? I miss you so much. Please come back soon." Serena kept drowning herself in booze. Because of the excessive drinking and the lack of rest, she felt like she was starting to hallucinate. Otherwise, how could Julian suddenly appear before her? The figure in front of her walked closer and closer, until he stopped a few paces away. Julian looked at her and frowned. Serena, why have you been drinking so much? If you keep this up, I won't talk to you anymore. Serena's calm expression suddenly shattered. Those eyes, which had been like a stagnant pool, sparkled with light again in that instant. She reached out and pulled the Julian standing in front of her close. She hugged him, her grip tightening, tears soaking the clothes on Julian's chest. She was afraid holding too tight would hurt him, yet afraid that if she let go, Julian would be just like in her dreams, vanishing before her eyes. Once again, finally, Serena just kept him locked in her embrace, treating him like a long-lost treasure. Julian, it's really you. It's really you, isn't it? I've been looking for you. You're finally willing to come back to me. Julian gently stroked her back. His voice was inviting. You're very tired right now. Why don't you go rest for a bit? I'm not going anywhere. Serena stood up obediently, but her hands refused to let go even for a second. She led Julian all the way into the bedroom. Serena felt like she was in a beautiful dream, but if Julian was willing to return to her, what did it matter if it was a dream? She just wanted to never wake up. Serena lay on the bed, holding Julian tightly in her arms, terrified he would suddenly vanish. Julian felt uncomfortable in her embrace, and shifted his body. In her intoxicated state, Serena began to stroke Julian's body. When things were about to go all the way, Serena's clouded consciousness suddenly cleared. She saw clearly. The man pinning her down was a complete stranger. Serena felt a splitting headache. She slapped him hard. Who are you? Where is Julian? Where did you take my Julian? He was just here a second ago. Under the influence of alcohol, Serena had no idea how much force was behind her blow. The slap lit a fire of rage in the man. Fuming, he shoved Serena back. The man wasn't Julian at all. It was Julian's half-brother, Leo. Mrs. Serena couldn't stand seeing Serena lose her mind over Julian every day, living like a shadow of her former self, neither dead nor alive. Every method she tried had failed. Then she suddenly remembered that Julian had a brother 3 years younger. Back then, the father had remarried after the mother died, but he had been having an affair and had a love child long before that, and that was Leo. After getting a photo, she saw that Leo, with a face that shared a 50% resemblance to Julian's, Mrs. Serena made a decision on the spot. She promised benefits to the Julian family, on the condition that Leo would get close to Serena, to heal her emotional wounds. But she didn't expect the plan to backfire. Leo looked at Serena, whose head was bleeding uncontrollably. She had accidentally hit her head when he shoved her away earlier. He wanted to leave, but she held onto him in a tight grip. Serena was no fool. Once she regained consciousness, looking at Leo and his 50% resemblance to Julian, she pieced everything together after a moment's thought. You're Julian's brother, aren't you? I don't care how you do it. As long as you get him to come back, I'll give you whatever you want. Hearing this, Leo curled his lip in annoyance. That orphan loser? What makes him worth looking for? The moment the words left his mouth, he saw Serena staring at him with cold, dark eyes. She warned Leo, emphasizing every word. I won't allow anyone to slander Julian. If I hear another word, I'll kill you. Under Serena's threat, Leo reluctantly dialed Julian's phone number. The phone rang for a while before it was picked up. The voice on the other end was full of annoyance at being woken up. Hey, big brother, it's Leo. Dad is seriously ill. He wants you to come back and see him. I froze for an entire minute before I could retrieve the name, Leo, from a dusty, forgotten corner of my mind. We hadn't been in touch for so long that I had almost forgotten. I even had a half-brother, and that so-called father. I had cut ties with the Julian family long ago. I spoke flatly. Whether he's dead or alive is none of my business. There's no need to notify me. On the other end of the line, though I couldn't see Leo's expression, I could hear the displeasure in his voice, as his facade suddenly dropped. No wonder Dad doesn't want you. You really are unlikable, Julian. You deserve to be abandoned by Dad. And you deserve to be abandoned by the Serenas, too. Those words caused me to snap out of my half-asleep state. Kiss. Instantly. My voice was as cold as a blade. Did Serena make you call? Though it was a question, I already knew the answer in my heart. Leo gave a cold snort. So what if she did? Julian, I just can't stand that attitude of yours. Click. I hung up immediately, giving him no chance to continue. Ooh. Meanwhile, Serena, whose body was cold from blood loss, only managed to mutter, in a voice so weak it was barely audible, "Julian, I never wanted to abandon you." After the call ended, Serena fell into a coma due to the loss of blood. Leo, who had planned to slip away quietly, finally contacted Mrs. Serena out of fear of being held responsible for her death. Only then was Serena's life saved. Now, in the hospital room, Serena was still unconscious. She had been comatose for 2 full days. As Mrs. Serena waited, her anxiety grew more and more intense. Julian. Just as Mrs. Serena thought Serena was about to wake up, the doctor said her muttering was just a subconscious behavior. Julian's departure had become a trauma rooted in Serena's heart. Looking at Serena, who was so thin she was barely recognizable, Mrs. Serena couldn't help but collapse by the bed and sob. I didn't answer Mrs. Serena's call until she had tried several times. The phone rang over and over, sounding especially piercing. In the early morning of this foreign land, I already knew why she was calling. Who else could it be but Serena? When the phone flashed with the 7th call, I stared at the screen, hesitating for 2 seconds, before finally sliding to answer. "Julian, I'm at my wit's end. Please, don't hang up." Her voice was choked and raspy on the other end. I could tell she was truly crying. I was silent for a few seconds, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mrs. Serena, is something wrong?" I didn't want to call her auntie anymore. Such an intimate title would remind me of how well she used to treat me, and the abyss she personally pushed me into. She brought up Serena without any hesitation. "Serena has been looking for you all this time. I know she did wrong, but she's truly full of regret. Julian, can you give her one more chance? Even if it's just to see her once." I looked out at the morning streets of Paris. The wind made my fingertips feel icy. It had been nearly 3 months since I left Riverport. I had moved around a few times during those months, but ultimately settled here. I had heard quite a bit of news from Riverport. Serena hadn't given up on finding me. The commotion she caused grew so loud that I didn't even dare to update my social media, for fear of being found by her. Deep down, I knew this wasn't a permanent solution. It was time to bring this feud to an end. So, I spoke. "I'll be returning to Riverport in a week. I'll contact you then." I hung up the phone as soon as I said that, without waiting for her response. The slight opening I gave would be enough to drive Serena into a frenzy. I could imagine her excitement upon hearing the news, and how she would probably think I had forgiven her. But she didn't know that I wasn't going back to give her a chance, but to give myself a chance to say a proper goodbye. An end. A final, complete end. Mrs. Serena called to say Serena had woken up, and that the first thing she said was that she wanted to see me. I was silent for a moment, before finally agreeing to return to Riverport. She gave me the location for our meeting, a greenhouse on the outskirts of town. Actually, the moment I heard the address, I knew it was another one of Serena's arrangements, but I said nothing. I packed my things after hanging up and set off on time. The moment I stepped into the greenhouse, I froze for a second. Although it was the height of summer, the place was filled with blooming pear blossoms. A thick layer of petals covered the ground, and the air was thick with a faint, sweet fragrance. With every step, a memory unfolded. As if I had fallen into a fairy tale, I knew exactly why she had set this up. She couldn't forget the year we first got together. When the pear blossoms were in full bloom, she was using this to try and stir up the feelings I once had for her. But I was no longer that Julian. I didn't linger on the decorations, but looked directly at Serena, who was standing nearby. She walked toward me, her frame so thin she could barely fill out her suit. I was stunned for a moment. After not seeing her for 3 months, she really had changed a lot. She was haggard and pale, her eyes red and swollen. It was as if her soul had been drained away, leaving behind only a hollow shell. But not even a hint of pity stirred in my heart. "Julian," she said as she spoke. I stopped in my tracks, maintaining a distance of 10 feet. I didn't want to take another step closer. "Say whatever you have to say." I looked at her, my voice flat and distant. "But I hope that after today, you will stop interfering in my life." A look of hurt appeared in her eyes, as if my words had slapped her awake. But I didn't soften. She took a breath, looking up at me, as she tried to force a smile. "Julian, I think about you every single second. I know you hate me, and you hate me for betraying you, but I've really changed. You didn't like Ethan, so I've cut ties with him completely. The child is gone, too. I've had the rings custom made again. I even planted pear trees. I want to propose to you again. Julian, can we start over? Her eyes were full of light, as if she were using every ounce of her strength to plead with me. I promise you, from now on, I will never betray you again. If I ever break my word, then I deserve to grow old and die alone. She sounded so sincere, so pathetic. It almost sounded like she meant it, but I only felt a sense of irony, an overwhelming irony. I looked at her, my voice as calm as if I were stating a simple fact. Serena, if I hadn't suddenly vanished, would you have voluntarily cut ties with Ethan? Yes. To me, you are the most important person in the world. When she blurted those words out without a moment's hesitation, perhaps I should have softened a little. But I just found it laughable, and a cold sneer tugged uncontrollably at the corners of my mouth. Even I found myself repulsed by the irony of it. Her gaze shifted instantly, as if my laughter had physically stung her eyes. No, you wouldn't. I looked up at her, mercilessly cutting through her self-indulgent drama. You couldn't let go of me, yet you were addicted to the thrill Ethan gave you. If you truly could have walked away, how did you end up carrying his child? And then you planned to hide it from me, letting me believe the child was mine. The moment I finished speaking, I saw her body tremble slightly, but I didn't stop. You're saying you'll let go now, only because you realize that I'm never coming back. Your biggest regret isn't that you did wrong, it's that you didn't hide it better. I slowly closed the distance, my voice dropping to a whisper. If you could do it all over again, I'd bet anything you would have hidden Ethan far away, somewhere I would never find him in this lifetime. That way, you could have had it both ways. You'd continue to lie to me and keep up the act. Her face turned deathly pale in an instant. I knew I had hit the most private, most unadmitted part of her soul. Her lips trembled, but not a single word came out. It took a long while before she finally spoke in a raspy voice. Julian, you can't condemn me for things that never happened. She was still shaking her head, denying and arguing, but I had long since lost the patience to listen. Maybe my guess is wrong, I sneered, but the fact that you betrayed me is an unalterable reality. Serena, what makes you think that after you've done so many disgusting things, I could ever go back to the way things were, and just forgive and forget? She could barely stay on her feet. Her face was unnervingly white. The ring in her hand fell with a soft thud, rolling to my feet. I looked down at it for a second, but didn't pick it up. She stared at me, resentment flickering in her eyes. Then why were you willing to come back? Weren't you afraid? She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she wanted to say. She was afraid I thought she would use her power to trap me here. She certainly had the ability. In this city, her word was law. And in truth, I really shouldn't have come back. But I did, because I realized that if I didn't face this, it would never truly be over. I looked at her, my tone as cold as ice. Couldn't ask permissions. You know better than I do what constitutes kidnapping and illegal detention. I don't think you want that on your record. I only came back to end this once and for all. Your obsession has already started to interfere with my life. I finished speaking and turned to walk away, but she suddenly grabbed my wrist from behind. She didn't say anything, but I knew that look all too well. Pleading, sorrowful, and a tiny bit petulant. She was begging me not to leave so finally, but I had no more pity left for her. Before I could even shake her off. Honey, what's taking so long? Vivian's voice drifted over from the greenhouse entrance. I didn't even see how she approached. I only felt her naturally link her arm with mine. Serena froze. She stared blankly at me, and then at Vivian. Our hands were tightly interlaced. Her voice trembled. Who are you? Hi, I'm Vivian, Julian's girlfriend. Vivian offered a poised, elegant smile. If you ever get the chance, you're welcome to visit us in Paris. I didn't say a word. I just walked out side by side with Vivian. There was no more resistance from behind me. But after just a few steps, I heard a dull thud, followed by the sound of someone coughing up blood. I didn't look back. I just closed my eyes briefly. This was the choice she made for herself, and I was finally done bearing the consequences for her. Just as Vivian and I were about to leave the greenhouse area, Mrs. Serena suddenly appeared before us. She stood tall and rigid, blocking our path, appraising me with a complex look, before shifting her gaze to Vivian. Julian, are you really leaving just like that? And is this person your friend? I pushed down my internal emotions, answering in an indifferent tone. There's nothing left for me and Serena to talk about, and this is my girlfriend, Vivian. Vivian politely nodded to Mrs. Serena. Her voice was soft. "Hello, Mrs. Serena." But Mrs. Serena didn't seem to want to acknowledge her. Her eyes fixed on our joined hands. Her tone turning accusatory. "Julian, you and Serena have only been apart for 3 months. How could you?" she trailed off. But I knew exactly what she was trying to say. "Can't you see how much she's suffered for you? She harmed her own health with that procedure for your sake. Since you were willing to come back and see her, why can't you give her one more chance?" I listened to every word she said, the fatigue in my heart piling up bit by bit. I understood Mrs. Serena's position, and I understood her heartbreak for her daughter. But the more she acted this way, the clearer my mind became. "Mrs. Serena," I looked at her, my voice low but firm. "Serena's suffering has absolutely nothing to do with me. The child she was carrying wasn't mine. She could have chosen to keep it. Whatever pain she is in is entirely of her own making." I paused, and continued. "The reason I agreed to come back and see her was out of respect for how well you treated me in the past. But that doesn't mean I owe her anything. Serena could betray me before our wedding. Yet I'm supposed to ask for your permission to date someone. Now that we're broken up? What right does she have? And there's one more thing." I looked at her, my eyes dark. "Mrs. Serena, you knew about her affair much earlier than I did. Yet you chose to help her hide it. I won't judge the choice you made then, nor will I say whether you were wrong or right. But you have no right to ask for my forgiveness." Mrs. Serena's face looked ghastly. I didn't intend to provoke her, but I had held those words in for too long. I saw Serena walk out from the back. She was pale, weakly leaning against the wall for support. Mrs. Serena immediately turned and ran to her, calling her name in a panic. I didn't stay. I turned, took Vivian's hand, and led her away from that place that no longer belonged to me. This time, I was truly gone. From now on, Serena and I were strangers. During our stay in Riverport, I took Vivian around the city. It was her first time here, and I had once thought I would spend my entire life here. I took her to the beef noodle shop I frequented as a kid, walked along the river to catch the breeze, and even went to see Caleb. We made a promise that whenever Caleb felt like a change of pace, he'd fly out to Paris to visit me. Then, Vivian and I left Riverport together. The moment the plane landed in Paris, I felt a weight lift off my chest. I was finally, truly free. I had met Vivian during my first trip to Paris. The day I landed, I was exhausted and nearly got scammed by a rental agent. Vivian was the one who stepped in to help me out. She even took me to a safe house owned by one of her friends. Afterward, we started grabbing meals and chatting occasionally. We gradually became close. She said I was very quiet, a lot like the protagonist of a manga she loved as a kid. I just smiled at the time. I didn't say anything. Not until later did she seriously tell me that she liked me. I didn't turn her down. It wasn't an impulsive decision, nor was I looking for a rebound. I knew very clearly that I no longer loved Serena. From the moment I sat alone at the wedding venue and saw that marriage certificate she had with someone else, all my love had been completely drained away. If anyone thinks it's cold-blooded of me to start a new relationship less than 3 months after a breakup, then let them. I won't bother explaining. Just like Vivian once said, running away only lets the situation torture you over and over. Only by facing it can you truly let go. I'm not running anymore. I no longer believe in the idea that there's only one person for everyone. People change, and hearts change too. I once believed in Serena's sincerity. Now, I am willing to believe in Vivian's. If I had to say, my love with Serena was like a moth to a flame. Then my time with Vivian is more like a gentle spring rain. Quiet and warm, unobtrusive, yet it seeps deep into the heart. That's enough. After returning to Paris from Riverport, my life finally returned to a state of peace. There were no calls from Serena. None of those people who called themselves my friends, but were actually on her side, came to urge me to forgive her. My Instagram was no longer flooded with unread messages. Even my dreams were much clearer than before. I got up for work on time every day, ate meals with Vivian, and occasionally went for walks, watching the days pass simply and cleanly. This was the life I wanted. As for everything regarding Serena, I had long since closed that door. I wasn't looking back. But I knew that she wouldn't truly be willing to let go. Caleb later told me in private that after I left, Serena had been in a terrible state. She was numb, as if she had lost her soul. She became emaciated and depressed. She even stopped attending any events and refused to take over any corporate affairs. She turned herself into a soulless walking corpse. I heard that Mrs. Serena became quite irritable because of this. This woman, who used to be elegant, proper, and composed, was now like a completely different person. She cursed the world, cursed Julian for being ungrateful, cursed Ethan for being a spineless scumbag. But mostly, she cursed Serena for being useless. And Mr. Serena was finally pushed to the brink of a breakdown. One day, Caleb sent me a voice recording. It was just a snippet, but I could already tell. It was the sound of Mr. Serena slamming the door open. In the hospital room. "Serena, look at yourself. Look what you've become." I heard his furious roar, followed by the dull thud of a heavy slap. I wasn't surprised. Mr. Serena was a man with an extreme need for control. He was exceptionally strict regarding family education and reputation. Serena's current state had likely crossed his line long ago. "You think if you act like this, Julian will come back? You aren't even worthy of a single glance from him now. Do you have any idea how many people are laughing at us out there?" Mr. Serena bellowed. Those shouts echoed through the room and pierced my eardrums through the audio. It was chillingly cold. "Look at your mother. Look what she's been put through because of you. Have you forgotten how she used to be? She doesn't even wear makeup anymore. She doesn't even bother combing her hair. Everyone in Riverport knows the Serena family has been disgraced." I didn't play the rest of the recording. I couldn't bear to hear it, nor did I want to. I am no saint. I don't have enough sympathy to spare for the people who once hurt me. The suffering Serena was going through now wasn't even 1/1000th of what I had experienced back then. I won't deny that when I heard she had gone gray overnight and had been slapped by her father, my heart felt a bit heavy. But that was just a human reaction. It wasn't because I was softening. It wasn't out of pity. And it certainly wasn't love. What truly chilled me was the fact that she had chosen all of this for herself. She chose it while she was fully aware. She weighed her options and decided to proceed anyway. She had chances to stop, but she didn't. The moment she betrayed me, she had already gambled everything and lost. So she shouldn't hate me for being heartless, nor should she expect me to turn back. I am not the person in her story who would be a backup for her for a lifetime. Later, it was said that Serena cooperated with treatment. Once her health improved slightly, she returned to the company. That business mind of hers? I won't deny she was very capable. If she hadn't been so formidable, those people wouldn't have taken the chance while she was at her weakest to attack her en masse. After her return, she went on a warpath. She turned on those wealthy families who had made a move and bit back at them one by one. Several companies declared bankruptcy. They lost everything down to their shirts. In the end, those people had to bow down and apologize, paying her off just to get Serena to stop. I suppose Mr. and Mrs. Serena could finally hold their heads up again. I don't know if they had a moment where they thought Serena had moved on, but after she gave them hell for arranging blind dates, they probably realized that she had simply buried her grief deep in her heart. She ignored everyone. Except for work, she almost never socialized. After work, she would go home and lie on the bed where I used to sleep. She once said that if she betrayed me, she would die alone. It seems she still remembered. The Serena Corporation's business expanded overseas. Their first stop was Paris. When someone mentioned this to me, I didn't pay it much mind, until I accidentally walked into a newly opened Chinese restaurant. I ate a bowl of familiar noodles. The taste was exactly the same. I knew it was her. I didn't go into the kitchen to see her. I just lowered my head, finished the noodles, and left. Later, she must have seen me, because I never went back to that shop. She didn't come looking for me. I knew she must be nearby, but she never appeared. I walked near that area a few times. Occasionally, from a distance, I would see her crouching by the flower bed at the restaurant entrance, stiffly pruning the branches of pear trees. Yes, she had planted a row of sand pears, the variety I liked. She knew my throat got sore easily in the autumn, so she had a few picked and sent to my house. I had them returned to her exactly as they arrived. Later, when the staff returned, they said she had heard the news of my upcoming wedding. Later still, she appeared at the back of the crowd at my wedding. I could sense it when the vows were finished. I heard a stifled sob coming from a corner behind me. I didn't look back. I knew it was her. Time passed. One day, while I was taking a walk, pushing a pregnant Vivian, I passed by that shop again. She was still there, sitting in the courtyard, her back looking pale. She was leaning against a pear tree, staring into space. She didn't come to greet me, and I didn't look back. Knowing she could no longer have children, I heard she had adopted a child back home. They say the child looks a little like me. I also heard. She constantly travels between Riverport and Paris. Her health getting worse with each passing year, but she is still alive. Still guarding that courtyard, guarding that row of pear trees, and guarding that shop. Sometimes I wonder, if she hadn't done those things back then, would we still be together now? But I only think about it, because that version of her had already disappeared on that night before the wedding. And as for me now, I already have a future of my own. She no longer belongs in my world,